Hey, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna Japan here. Here's an example. Japan itself, from what I understand, in a very extremely general sense, defines themselves to be a person wholly in terms of an identity of Japanese to be a person who consists of two parents that are both Japanese of descent, um, look Japanese, act Japanese, talk Japanese, like the language, act Japanese, has proper tatemai, which is saving face, and that's it. As far as I can tell. Very general, extremely general. That's what defines a Japanese person, especially in terms of nationality, identity, culture, and the like. Especially people, I want to say believe in, um, uh, they have this general sense of God. It's not really a big deal, but they do what they're supposed to do. Um, America is a very, and I'll keep saying this, that America is a special, very special. We're still trying to figure it out ourselves. Because America, by comparison, I like to think of a young country. What defines America? What defines the American? America can't be defined by ethnicity. You know, America can be defined, it can be defined by an ethnicity because America consists of many ethnicities. And I mean that in general. Because you can't say, even though we have these monikers of like African American, Irish American, German American, blah, 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 blah. What defines an American? Because you can't, from what I understand, there's no such thing as a Nigerian Japanese. There's no such thing. They call those people who have differences in their genetic makeup or ethnicity, as far as I can tell, halfs. Halves. They're not Japanese, they're half Japanese. And you could be nationally Japanese, but you would still be an outsider. You'd be gaijin. You'd still be outsider. You wouldn't be true Japanese. There was a J-vlogger. I like to think he's J-vlogger. I can't remember his name. Is it Nathan? Nathaniel? This guy, he was talking about how he hates it when people, when they treat him like an outsider. And he says, all I want to be is Japanese. And I think that more so, maybe he was in America, but he wanted to be accepted in fullness just as they accept their own. And their culture is just so, ingrained to believe, that everyone that doesn't look like them, doesn't act like them, doesn't talk like them, are not Japanese. And people say, hey, just get over it, you're not Japanese. But that still comes back to the idea of what is an American. For him in America, being American was just a state of being, his own state of being. Be a decent guy, and you're American. What does it mean to be Canadian? But specifically, this is more so, what does it mean to be American? Is American standing up and holding your heart and pledging in allegiance to the flag? Because our flag and our ideals, they're not just relative, they are especially nationalistic. Freedom, liberty. These concepts are things that make up our country. Like, we were under someone, we were under Britain or the church. I'm sorry, I'm not really sure on my face because I'm trying to get my thoughts together and I get distracted. I just have that up there. Yeah, let's try that. And so, taking into account, they wanted to be free from their oppressors, the people they were under. They declared it. They declared their freedom. They wanted their freedom. And so the basis, the concepts been in our constitution and the like, we had to slowly integrate these freedoms from merely just ourselves to other people, such as the people when we enslaved. and rather the people they enslaved to immigrants because we ourselves are immigrants of the country. So we extended it. And so understanding the identity of the American is not a particular people group. It can't be. It can't be. Originally it could have been just the Europeans who branched out from Great Britain. From Britain and the church itself. But this concept of freedom, while it's very relative, it can't. It has to be a concept that embodies everyone, but not just everybody. Because we're a nation that consists of a culture. And again, when you say diversity or we say conformity to the nation, whose culture are we conforming to? And that's part of the question we have to ask ourselves. That's one of the things, the things of Africa back in the day that they had to deal with, and they're probably still dealing with now. They have so much diversity. People don't think about that, but their countries within the continent are multiple things, multiple cultures, lifestyle. How do you rule under that one continent, especially in America? How do you rule under that? It's not just people will not never be happy. It's the fact that too many cultures exist under one roof with too many values and too many differences, and they clash together. And to me, part of the issue with immigration nowadays is just the fact that the immigrants bring their culture and they don't conform to the culture that they're immigrating to. And they say, well, that's not right. Well, it has to be. Like, for instance, in the Bible with Rashag, Meshach, and Abednego, they had Jewish names. The Rashag, Meshach, and Abednego are Babylonian names. They conformed to the culture that they immigrated to. Well, not really immigrated because they didn't have a choice. They were taken over. But while they were under their culture, the only time that that culture accepted their culture was because it was superior. They found that their values of not eating meat made them better people, more efficient in their tasks. So what can I say about just the immigration? Yes, you could. I like to think similar to like these mini cities, mini cultures in Chicago, Jewtown, Greek Town, Chinatown, and the like. You know, they have their communities, and that's great because that's how humanity works. We're not. We are humans at the end of the day, but let's not make that our first answer. We have to go back. We have to rewind. Well, not rewind, but just um, not be not be so general. Be specific, and then expand to being general, so that you get a full scope of the conversation. Now, what I mean is that people like familiarity. People like patterns. People like things that make sense. So just like with international students, when they come here, they lump together, they group together. Oh, how you doing? And so, given that they lump and group themselves together, they have themselves are surviving in a foreign place. So, being that they survive in a foreign place, they earn a sense of survival, even though they have nothing to fear. Their culture, their social well-being, their social existence thrives with familiarity. So when they're in a place of difference, they feel threatened. They may even feel like they are conflicted and may even have to overcome it. One of the issues I like to think in terms of immigrants and their second generation um, children or parents is the preservation of their heritage and culture. Like, for instance, language. When they come, like, for instance, I saw this video, this picture of this old man and he was around his parents. I think it was a video. Or, I think it was a picture. It was saying he brought his family here and not one of them speaks his own language. It was, I believe he was Mexican, it was Spanish. And it was like, that is a shame. But at the same time, that's how that works. So partially, I like to think it's similar to how some people say, like, I had read this video, I can't remember what it's called, but it's about a black Korean couple. And one of their concerns was preserving the Korean culture. And I think the guy was Nigerian as well. So, or Jamaican, one of those, preserving their culture within their children as they go to places like America. And I believe one of the kids in the video was she was almost making fun of the language, and she didn't like that because it was disrespecting her culture. Yes, as a child, yes, that child don't know any better, but you have to teach a child in the way they should go. So teaching a child about respecting one's own culture is essential to preserving that culture. In America, it's very hard to define that because yes, especially like for a black American, we don't really have a culture. We have, and that is also a great thing because it makes our culture up for grabs. Not so much for other people to grab, but for more so ourselves to develop. It's up to us to develop a new culture. And yes, we have made a new culture, freestyle, hip hop, stuff like that. And of course, minorities have other people like minorities such as Mexicans have have adopted that culture to the point where it's essentially theirs too. Is You have what, Fat Joe, Big Pun, and stuff like that. I mean, people like that, they're Mexicans, but I think they're Mexicans. They're Latinos. Let's just say that because it's a very general term. I don't know specifically what they are, but they've integrated themselves into the culture where they're one and the same. So when they drop in bombs, it's also a reflection of a struggling brotherhood, where it's like to say the N word or like the N word N bomb is to suggest you're my fellow struggler. You are with me, and that's why there are people like Eminem, or even there are white people who can say it, not so much particular, and there are only a particular people who say it, not just like your average suburban who hops by, likes hip hop, and walks into a place and saying, "Why can't I say it?" It's like, no, it's a privilege to say it. It's almost like those social. I don't even know if this is true or not, but like from what I've heard from the Native Americans, when they share in those ceremonies of smoking the peace pipe, as I hear, that's a sign of acceptance. Like, we accept you in our culture. You are, in a sense, one of us. I think for white Americans, um, when they grow up and they see no difference, especially with the black people around them, when they see no difference between themselves and the white person, and the white person has done as from what, and I'm taking some parts, not parts, for some influence from Kevin Stage's Ask a Crip, where he says that in his gang, the Crips, there are white people there, and he says we call them my brothers, but he says it's about heart, it's about courage. So that's their cultural value within that social setting, within that setting of that culture of the Crip mentality. What matters is courage. What matters is heart. What matters is um, perhaps determination. The fact that if they go somewhere, they go to their neighborhood and stuff, and they keep going, they show that determination, they will be accepted. And I like to think for the ones who are really down, who may have done things that makes them very acceptable in the culture, it makes them believe, hey, you're so down, you're one of us, you can say the word. It's not, again, that word shouldn't be something, because it's not something that should be taken lightly or thrown around lightly. It's something that is known to be culturally endearing. I mean, it's supposed to be a term of endearment. It's a culturally endearing. It's to say, hey, you are my fellow brother in this struggle. It's not something that's thrown around so easily. So going back to an American, hard to figure out who's an American and what do Americans do? You know, because what's an American? And again, um, even in America, I feel like to determine an American, and I feel like even now in the social and political unrest, we're kind of these growing pains. I like to call them growing pains, because just like a person has to come into contact, or come into to face their own beliefs and see if they hold water. I believe these political climates and these social conflicts are just that. As a society as a whole in America, we have to come into conflict with ourselves and figure out what is true and what is false. and what's going to stand the test of time, and what's going to stand the test of this conflict, and whatever emerges from that will be what we will run with. And of course, I would love it if we, at the end of the day, at the very end of the day, even if it's past my generation, to say we're all just Americans. I would love that. But we have to see, we have to get our air out our dirty laundry, and we need to sort through the clothes, and put compartmentalize the clothes, put the clothes, and well, not compartmentalize, but we need to check the laundry and say this is dirty, sort them out, the whites from the colors, and clean it. And then when we clean it, we compartmentalize it. Put the socks here, put the shirts here, put the drawers here, put the pants here, put the dress shirts here. Compartmentalize it. And by that, socially, I mean air out all the injustices that were done to all Americans. And not just. I guess that's a very broad term. But for me, as a Black American, it's just address this angst that we have with the white Americans and seeing what can be done, and then seeing if that's possible, and hopefully that is possible and that is done. And then the challenge will be on us to do what we have to do. But the idea is just simply, what can we do to make things better? That's going to be the better portion. If we say reparations, and we say just give us reparations, give us money, that'll solve it. Then the other side will, or even the government will have to be the ones who decide, is this going to be enough? Is this going to be enough? And if that's going to be a start, then make it happen. It doesn't matter what they're going to use with it. It's reparations. It's for their well-being. It's not like a action of forgiveness is not dictated by the person who needs to be forgiven. I mean, no. I'm sorry. Um, the action of forgiveness is on the person who's forgiven. I mean, who's forgiving, not the one who is forgiven. I'm sorry, I'm wording that wrong. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say is basically, if you're trying to show you're sorry, you cannot dictate how you can show you're sorry. It's up to the person who agree upon the action to show you're sorry. Otherwise, to me, that's narcissistic. Hey, I'm sorry. Let's just let it go under the rug. Let's just forget about it. It's like, no, because the problem ain't solved. Even though you feel good because the problem is solved in your eyes, it's just not solved. It's not fixed. You just declared it fixed because you didn't want to face the consequences. Sorry. So ultimately, part of that is just humility. Have some doggone humility, and seeing, hey, what can we do, and how can we move forward, and ask questions, honest questions. Don't sit here and start assuming people's positions, and don't word salad your way out of it. To sit here and say, to have all of this brittle skin, this fragile skin, this fragile frame, and say, oh, you know, we could just, and if one part speaks their piece and say, oh, this happened, um, and this really hurt. What you shouldn't do as a person, who the who the claim against them has said is, you didn't feel that. That's extremely poor. That's narcissistic in nature, to declare to somebody else who's in pain that they're not in pain. They're in pain. They're in pain. They described it. They feel it. It's not up to you to decide, redefine, or redecide what they feel. Another thing is, ask them. Listen to them. Be humble. Ask them, what can I do? And this is for all. A lot of this is going to be for multiple situations. What can I do? Because one of the things I would like, especially in a conversation where it's an argument and there's a misunderstanding, is I want to be the person who is left responsible, which means the other person has to do his part. I want to be the person to say, okay, what can I do? Rather than, I've done my part, now I'm waiting on you. Because if that person doesn't believe they've wronged anybody, that apology will never happen. So part of that is just understanding what's wrong, and not controlling the conversation or the situation in your favor. Just listen. Just listen to what's happening, and understand. Because if you're gonna ask questions you don't want the answers to, you just don't want the answers to it. You don't want to ask the question. You shouldn't ask the question. America is just is very unique. It's not like other countries. It's not ethnically like other countries because it's just a combination of things. It's not historically like other countries. I mean, similar, I like to think, but it's historically unique. It's unique in multiple fashions. And in order to handle this issue that we have in these growing pains as a nation, we're gonna have to talk to each other. We're gonna have to honestly have a humble conversation and just listen. Listen to the plight. Admit if you're wrong. If you don't, if you don't understand, but to sit here and word salad your way to try to handle a situation without context, without a mutual understanding, is a poor argument. You know, a good argument is when two parties leave satisfied in a genuine fashion, not one who forces the other person to believe is good, but when both parties are happier, not just happier. It's not just about your happiness. Satisfied. That's the better word. Satisfied, at peace. And peace, peace is not just up to one person. You know, I mean, and I'm sorry. Peace is not just up to another person. Peace is a internal thing. But to be satisfied with an argument that involves another person, a mutual understanding has to be made. It has to be agreed upon. It has to be understood. And as Americans, just we need to dirty out our laundry. That's all. That's just dirty out our laundry. And to check what's dirty, put it in the wash. And as an American, we just have to figure it out. Figure it out. You know, that's all. America. I love our ideals. I love the nation that we live in. But regardless of the nation that we live in, we have to figure this out. Regardless of the ideals we stand for, we have to be honest and real with ourselves to figure it out. Figure out what our issues are. Figure out what our problems are. Solve our problems. America isn't just blindly accepting your ideals. It's believing in your ideals and believing them because you know them. Believing them because they're worth believing in. And to know is use in your life. But I don't know. I'm sorry. I saw a person there and I just felt like I should talk more. But I'm pretty much finished. Um, America is just very unique and needs a unique solution. And it needs a honest solution, a very genuine solution that's going to call for the humility of both parts. Not humiliation, but humility of both parties to come down, talk to each other, discuss, negotiate, and compromise. I think that's going to be a bigger word, compromise. That's all right. That's all I got. Take care. God bless you. Okay, guys.